Okay, you're all set. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Thanks, Athena. So we'll do a roll call. Welcome to the October 16th Amherst Charter Review Committee meeting being held remotely. It appears we have 5 of our members here. I'll go around and do roll call. Erica?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
Bernie?
Present.
Raphael?
Here.
Excellent. And I'm here. So now we'll get started with minutes. We have the June 26th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Excellent. Second. Any questions, comments?
No.
No. Okay, we'll vote. Myself, I'm an aye. Andy?
Aye.
Bernie?
Abstain, I was absent.
Okay. Raphael?
Yes.
And Erica?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So those meeting minutes are passed and can be posted. Now we will move to the October 9th meeting minutes submitted by Ken. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any
Second.
questions, comments on these?
No.
No. Okay. I will now have a vote on that. Opposite order. Raphael?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
And myself, I'm an aye. Excellent. Do we have any public comment? I see one person. If you'd like to raise your hand or press *9 on a telephone, you can come in and comment. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. I will get us started with the agenda here. So let me just pull it up and screen share it for everybody. Okay.
Julian, you said you had switched the order, so which thing are we doing first?
Yep, I'll get that up in 1 second here. We are first doing the outreach subcommittee, then feedback subcommittee, then we're switching initial report, presentation and discussion of Collins Center feedback. So we'll first do discussion of Collins Center feedback, followed by preliminary report plan and timeline, followed by initial report, presentation and discussion if we have time.
I would like to make time for the initial report response, because if we don't, we cannot make any progress as a sub working group to move that report along to submission.
Great. Do you want to start the outreach subcommittee update then quickly?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to what I've already said. To be totally honest, my work has been focused on getting the initial report draft material together. There is an item that I wanted to bring to the table that is about outreach, and that is a proposal that we sort of made to invite council to our meeting once the initial report has been submitted and they have had a moment to digest it. And we can talk about that now, or we can talk about that when we have a fuller group, but it is time is pressing for that invitation to be made, so that can be on the sort of horizon for council members who may want to attend, and so that we can sort of advertise that to the public as well, that there might be a discussion with council members present.
Excellent. Thank you, Erica. Any questions on that?
No.
Not a question. I think it sounds like a good idea. Do we want to just pick a date?
The only issue is it's difficult to pick a date because I don't know when we'll have. It depends on what happens tonight and whether Ken and I will be able to revise and amend with comments and then submit, or whether we will arrive at the conclusion that it needs additional work so that will change the timeline considerably.
So should we put it on the agenda for next time?
I would say that's appropriate. Okay. Andy, feedback subcommittee, can you all meet?
The feedback subcommittee has not met. I did, as I guess, since I'm talking about feedback, I did take I believe it was 12 items that you sent, that Julian sent to Collins Center, and added those to our green list so that we have the full list of things that have been sent to the Collins Center at this point. And I guess we can talk in the report section, but the initial report right now just includes the first round of things that were sent to the Collins Center. And I'm curious whether we're going to try to take take on all of the items and produce a potentially winnowed list of vetted suggestions for our initial report, or if we're thinking of sending the one that's not. So I guess that's something we can talk about later.
Great. Questions for Andy?
No.
No? Okay, great. Thanks. We got the first few sections done in 10 minutes, so good job. We will now move us along to discussion of Collins Center feedback because of how we've rearranged the agenda. I have that screen shared here. I hope you all were able to read this file that was sent to everyone. It was in the packet, but if not, I'm screen sharing it. You will see that.
Yes.
I can.
Great. Yeah, so folks want to discuss sort of overall thoughts on this, and then if we have questions about specific articles, etc., we can add. It's only through Article 2, but there's a fair amount of good feedback in here. I'll allow folks to raise hands for general observations, and then we'll go into sort of the nitty-gritty if we have comments, questions about that. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was very helpful. I think that, but we sort of, my sense is that we need to take this feedback then and go back to each of our things that they've provided feedback on, and then decide, are we going to push this forward or not based on their feedback? For example, the first one, the intergovernmental relations one, seems to indicate that they don't think mandating intergovernmental regionalization is a very good direction to go in. So I would tend to agree with that, and I wouldn't necessarily think that we would want to use the council's time by sending them something that doesn't seem like a good change from language that we already have about regionalization. So we might want to go. I'm hoping we can go through this and sort of maybe, but I don't know if we want to do it tonight or if we want to do it another time. But we do have a quorum, but I think we should be taking this into account because their expertise. They've given us some language on some, and they've given us some red lights and green lights on various things. And I think it would be really useful to us to amend our list based on that.
Yeah, are folks comfortable, Raphael?
Following what you shared earlier, Andy, I wonder if it's worthwhile for us to do this moving forward with the number of people that are here. 3 people are not. It would be great to hear what other folks think.
Yeah.
Erica?
Yeah, I tend to agree, Raphael, because what by incorporating Colin's feedback is this sort of is a bit the threshold for what for a lot of things what makes it into the initial report. We could take the approach that if additional feedback comes in this next week, that we could put all of those things against what's in the spreadsheet that I sent out as the initial report and sort of make decisions based on a lot of these things. If you read carefully, like Collins is saying, this seems like it's too prescriptive for a charter, or this seems like it doesn't, it's asking for a clarification that's already defined somewhere else, or there are things that where there are many things where we might decide this doesn't actually belong in this initial report, or deserves additional consideration for a preliminary report. So I think it's an important conversation. And so to that part of it, it might require a full, not require, but it might do better with the full group. And while it's sort of disappointing to not be able to move it forward tonight because we have a draft in hand, but I think that Colin's feedback is it's sort of critical for a lot of them.
Andy?
I'm wondering if we I'm thinking two things. One is that we should really we should resolve the question about what the starting point is for the initial report, whether it's the subset that was sent to Collins previously or the entire subset that we now have, the entire set that we now have with the addition of the new things that were sent to them, Julian sent last week. But then I would think we could go through this and sort of, if we have consensus from this group, that's 5 out of the 8 folks. We could say, well, we had consensus on these items that they seem like really, we might want to take this advice. And then that might streamline things when we get the full group together. We could say, here are the ones we have consensus on among us 5. Do you agree? Do you want to discuss it further? And then we delve into the ones that we don't have consensus on and the ones that aren't commented on yet with the full group. Just possibly.
Sure. I have my own comment and then I'll call on you again, Erica. I did send an email, maybe folks didn't see it, at least to Erica and Ken, about basically asking, does what is included in the initial report, is that inclusive of everything we've sent to Collins or just the first round?
The first round.
Okay, great. Thank you. So basically, in my mind, we should make an initial report inclusive of everything we've sent to Collins as, and this is just my opinion, as our first report to the council, and then have Collins Center's vetting and deciding whether we move these things forward on our preliminary report. So basically, we've explained to the council, here's what the committee supports as ideas. These are our ideals. And then after that, we can do some vetting and discuss with Collins. I don't want to prejudge some of these things. Like, yes, some of these things Collins says, might not be the best idea, might be too prescriptive, etc. But at the same time, we as a committee may want to still move them forward. So I don't want to whittle down our ideas too much. I want the council to see as large a breadth of ideas as we can allow them to consider that we think are feasible. Erica?
Yeah, a couple of points. One is, I think if we agree as a group, it's absolutely fine to include everything that we've sent to Collins in the initial report. I don't see an issue with that. The other piece, though, we could take the approach that we just like wrestle with these 9 that they gave us feedback on and make ultimate decisions. However, you know, there's a lot to consider, and we could decide that the initial report is simply the compiled suggestions under serious consideration, which we have already discussed, voted on, passed to their next phase. This does not necessarily mean, and the language in the accompanying notes sort of makes that clear. This does not suggest that these are the recommendations that the council should then immediately vote on. This is an initial report. As we know, there's 2 forthcoming drafts, right? So this initial report could make it very clear. These are the of the totality, these are the subset of suggestions under consideration that the committee has sort of moved on to get expert advice, and will then, for a preliminary report, will write a sort of full and descriptive revision of language to charter or whatever, which is going to take us longer than an abbreviated and small group meeting.
Thanks, Bernie, and then Andy.
I think the council is looking for a report.
Yeah.
Bernie, I'm not sure if it's just me, but your
Yes.
mic is really quiet. Maybe something's covering your mic.
Yeah,
That's better.
let me
Better
sit
now.
up, let me sit up straight and enunciate, and also turn up the volume here a little bit.
Perfect. That's
Four
much
score and
better.
7 years ago.
Thanks, Athena.
The council's looking for a report.
Yeah.
So I would be inclined to go along with what's been suggested, that we take the second batch of questions that we had referred off to Collins, combine them with this initial report, forward it to the council with a big disclaimer in bold type that this is what we've come down to. We've whittled it down to this. These are still under consideration. That doesn't mean that any of this will turn up as a final recommendation in our next and final reports. That we want the council to know the depth and the breadth of stuff that we've had to look at. It also, in a way, explains how much time it's taken, because there's tons of stuff. I think when we get to it, we would probably end up whittling this list way down. There's stuff that can be combined. There's stuff that can go out. And I think the final list of things will be fairly modest. But for now, I think we need to get something to the council that gives them an idea of the work we've been doing and where we're going to go from here. And I would be very careful about using recommendation, the term recommendation or even suggestion. These are what is under consideration, and make it abundantly clear that there's been no final determination of which of these are going to go forward, that we need more feedback from Collins. We need more discussion among ourselves. We need some feedback from the council as to what they think is important. And let's move on, because if we wait another week or 2 weeks, we're going to burn up time that we really, we'll just run the risk of irritating the council further, and we'll burn up time, and then we could better spend whittling this list down. So let's get them a report. Let's make it clear this is very preliminary, in that there'll be a much smaller set of recommendations coming out of this in the future.
Thanks, Bernie. Andy?
You're muted.
Thank you. I guess I'm persuaded by the, as far as a strategy for getting an initial report out, one of 3, I guess that makes sense. I'm just a little concerned that we're going to put some things out. I mean, I think, like Bernie said, I think we need to frame this very carefully so that it's clear that these are things that we decided we wanted to explore further. And so we've sent them to our consultants, and we want to hear from, stakeholders and the public about them. I'm just a little, there are some things that I think we could probably get rid of fairly easily based on the feedback. But if you think, I mean, I think in terms of showing that we're considering what, you know, whatever this number is, for the combined number would be somewhere around 65 or 70 ideas. Yeah, I guess as long as we're framing it like these are things that have not been eliminated yet. These are things that we felt we needed to get more input on, but we wanted to show you the work at this point. This is showing your work. This is not by any means a final product. I think there is some benefit to checking the box of an initial report in a way that moves the process forward. So, you know, my druthers would be to have, you know, a more finely tuned list of things that we actually think are really good ideas that then could be tested in this first round, that then we could, you know, fine tune with the preliminary and get further feedback. But if that's not possible, then I think there's a good way to go.
Great, thanks, Raphael, and then Erica.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what the last few folks have shared. I think the initial report priority, I even think like allowing the public and town council to see these suggestions that came from the public is important. So the whittling down that we're talking about, I wouldn't want to do that with this small number, short amount of time. I think we should be thoughtful about our conversations with the whole committee. And I don't think I don't feel we could do that tonight. And I think like that initial report, the initial report plan and review is pressing. Hopefully you have a decent amount of time tonight to sort of consider that.
Thanks, Erica.
I'm still of a mind to do what we've been discussing, which is to add in the additional items and just work on the framing and the context that we're putting around this as an initial report, and choosing our language carefully about how we're presenting this. And I think Raphael makes a good point that if we're doing this additional outreach effort, we want to leave this as a sort of an edited list of everything, but it's not an approved list of everything. In other words, we've done some work on it to filter out the things that are, for instance, would require a special act or would, you know, require a new commission, things like that, or things that weren't necessarily in some way or other directly described in the charter. We're going to come back to some of that, but I think we can pull this off as a carefully framed initial report that is just everything that we have voted on enough to get expert advice. And maybe we can spend a moment tonight talking about the language in the initial report notes, the sort of drafted document that we attached. But I don't know if we need to motion and vote on this process.
Yeah, why not? You want to make a motion, Erica?
Sure, I'm making a motion that the initial report draft that the committee has in hand will also include the additional items that have been sent on to Collins. And there will be accompanying language that will make clear that this is truly an initial report of suggestions under consideration, not final approved items by the committee.
Second.
Excellent. Any comments, discussions? I don't see any. I have one. I completely support this. I think that's a great idea. I want us to be careful about not, when we get to that point in the process, about not overly whittling this down. I don't want to see basically only process suggestions. I want to see some fundamental changes too, because that's our job as a committee. But I think that for this point, to get this out to the council, this is a great a great way to sort of finalize this report. Raphael?
I just want to say though, Julian, the whittling down that we've been we talk about the why. Hopefully moving forward, we have some methodology or approach about the why. Maybe perhaps some committee members are like, this is my thing. I'm knowledgeable about X. But I think there's also an approach which comes from, this is what the public is asking for. So I think that takes a little more time, a little more analysis. But my preference is folks are asking for this. These folks are considering this. Hopefully that's illuminated as we move forward. Because I am wary of it's Raphael's sort of perspective on X. Certainly I could weigh in, but all that feedback we're receiving, I think illumination of it and considering it in the rationale is key.
I agree. I couldn't have said it better. Excellent. Any other comments? No? Okay.
Just a quick comment that if this is the direction we're going in, I think we could dispense with the Collins Center report for tonight then and just move to discussing the framing of the document, the report piece.
I agree. We'll just vote on this motion. Myself, I'm an aye. Andy?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Bernie?
Yes.
Raphael?
Yes.
Excellent. That's unanimous. We'll close this out. That brings us along to the initial report presentation and discussion. This will probably take the rest of the meeting, considering that Andy, you still have to leave at 7. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem at all. It's the debate. Am I correct?
Yeah. No, it's the league's presentation of the community safety reports.
Okay,
and
great.
Recommendations.
Awesome. I may tune in online as well.
We should let people know who's taking the notes for this evening.
Oh yes, thank you. Whoops, my bad.
It's probably
Thank
me.
you. Minute taker is Andy. Can you take minutes for tonight?
Yep.
All right, there'll be a recording. Thank you. Okay, excellent. Good catch, Raphael. We will move along to initial report presentation and discussion. This will probably take the rest of the evening. I'm not anticipating we'll have time for a preliminary report plan and timeline. And once this discussion is over at a good stopping point, I'll probably adjourn the meeting if that's appropriate for folks, given our quorum. Just a plan for the rest of the evening. Here is the initial report notes that Erica and Ken submitted. And here is the draft initial report suggestions. I'm assuming and hoping folks have read this, but I'll pass it off to Erica and feel free to tell me where to scroll on this if needed.
Okay. I thought, given our discussion and what we just voted on, that it might be useful to just take a look as a group at the spreadsheet first, so that we could see what it just even what categories of what it includes, and then we could talk about the framing. The way I tried to organize this is the suggestion under consideration. This is what I was saying, is very lightly cleaned up from the suggestion as received, just to make it a little bit more readable sometimes, or to take out just extra wording or things that were kind of explanation. Anyway, it's just lightly edited. There's nothing removed in terms of content. The second column, where it says rationale and discussion notes, is a kind of combination of the rationale that might have come in with this suggestion from wherever it came from, whether it was public comment, the survey, other public comment forums, listening sessions, whatever, and things that came up in both in discussion and from the feedback subcommittee. So that's sort of compiled there and it needs editing. before we would put this out into, submit it to council, I would think that part of the work would be to, again, lightly clean this up and make a sort of simplified rationale or point counterpoint approach to what's in this column, because sometimes we did come up with, well, on the one hand, but then on the other hand, sort of approach to some of these items. So I think that in that column, that's part of the work that we could do, again, in full committee, to edit that down a little bit and make a clearer statement of why this is in our list at all. Again, even though it's under consideration. And finally, the last column is just there as a point of comparison. It's the original charter language. Wherever I could, I cut paste charter language directly into so that it can be read against, the suggestion can be read against the charter as it exists. It's not always a one-to-one. And sometimes it's a little bit confusing because some suggestions apply to multiple places in the charter, or because the item comes up under the several articles. I think that something happened with lengthening and staggering election terms or something like that, came up in 3 different articles, and so I didn't paste it in 3 times. So that kind of thing, we could work on, taking this from a draft to a final version of the initial report. But that's what I just wanted to give a little context of what you're looking at here. So to me, the heaviest work is cleaning up the rationale, and that if there's any note to be added, and we can decide that that can be super simple, or we can decide that it can be sort of like descriptive paragraphs like we have here. As you can see, these 34 suggestions, it doesn't include the total that we've now agreed to include. It turns out to be a 10-page PDF document. And that's part of that is charter language, right? That makes it longer, but part of it is the kind of intense, as you can see, the intense amount of descriptive language and rationale and discussion. So I would love to hear thoughts or opinions about any of that. Bernie, I heard you say earlier that the word suggestions even is not the best word. Terminology here for what we're calling these things. I consider them suggestions under consideration because we're not calling them, final recommendations. But if there's some other wording that would be preferable, we should figure that out.
Thank you. Raphael, and then I have a comment, and then Bernie.
Eric, I wondered if you all considered like having a report that has an addendum that has all of these details, but the finished report, I wonder if it's worthwhile to just reduce list of things under consideration with a rationale, like having the original charter language here in terms of like the report. I'm not sure it's necessary now. And there's a lot going on here. So I wonder if reducing it and maybe including this as an addendum is helpful. But I just think like the reading of a report like this is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Thank you. My first comment was just something for the committee to sort of decide on. Are we planning to include and add before we submit this to the town council the other green items that we have considered? I believe the answer was yes. I just wanted to clarify on that those will eventually be added before it gets submitted to council.
Yeah, based on our vote, I'm planning to add everything that was sent to Collins. If there's anything that what I understood was there were two batches sent to Collins, the first and the second, and that this should contain everything that was sent in the first batch. If I'm mistaken about that, we'll correct it, but ultimately it should include both batches.
That's correct. It should include both. That's perfect. And then my other question was just sometimes in here, I'm noticing like it says, I'm gonna just scroll to find a decent example. where it's like emergency measures or like the budget or like I think we sort of need to as a committee decide what that means and provide some more clarity like on this right to postpone issue. This is pretty significant issue. I guess we as a committee need to decide what our proposed solution is rather than just this is an issue. I don't know if that's something we'd want to do in the preliminary report or if we'd want to do that now, but I think figuring out a solution and charter language for the solution, not just we've identified this as a problem, is a good idea. At least give the council a choice that we support. There's another one or two that are similar to this as I scroll down, but I won't waste everyone's time with that. Bernie and then Andy.
Yeah, I don't want to overdo it in terms of, using suggestion under consideration. I think it's fine. The one thing to be really picky is I would change the title of this file because this is initial report recommendations. I'd like to just continue to insist that we haven't made any recommendations.
Yeah.
One of the things we're going to do as we go on is we're going to whittle this down, and we're going to end up giving the council a list of things of recommendations that they can vote on. So I wouldn't worry too much about whittling it down now or coming to conclusion right now, because we're going to tell them this is stuff that we're looking at. The final report is going to have things that you folks will have to take under consideration and vote up or down or refer. So you're going to have to take some action on all these. So I'm not worried right now about refining too much stuff. I want to let the council know sort of the universe of what we've heard in our considering. So that, I think that's fine. It's not going to be a polished product. It shouldn't be. It's the initial report. And that's Eric, I think you've done well with this. I really appreciate it. I would also keep the charter language in there because it gives people a framework of what we're bouncing off of. And I wouldn't trust the average reader to have their copy of the charter handy so they could go back and forth and compare what's there now with what we're talking about. So having that, and I think we talked about that before, having this initial report, having these 3 columns with the original charter language in it for just that reason, because it puts things in context. And where the charter doesn't consider something, then there's no charter language, it's blank, and that it becomes obvious that this is something new. So that's it.
Thanks, Bernie. Andy?
I'd like to do both. I think it would be good to have maybe a cover sheet that just has a chart that has Article 1, here's the suggestion under consideration, Article 2, blah, blah, blah. And then behind that is this three column chart. So people could see at a glance the types of suggestions that have come in and the range of them. I mean, some of them are as vague as lengthen and stagger terms for elected office. And then some are, very detailed, but I think to be able to quickly scan, 50 things or whatever, it would be good to have a cover sheet that just has the suggestions listed under consideration by article. And then to have this, I like having the language there and the discussion, but I agree that it's a lot to absorb right up front. So maybe that's a combination that could work.
Yeah, thank you. Raphael?
And I would say that list, Andy, in terms of like public engagement with the report could be really helpful. So list and I think could be helpful.
Chart.
Yeah.
Excellent. Erica?
The cover sheet that you're suggesting would just be purely a list of the items from the first column, in other words.
Yeah.
Just in the list form. And
Yeah.
then this more substantial sort of rationale-based explanation would be behind it.
Yeah.
And I've heard both arguments from what you've said, what everybody has said about including the charter language, and I can make a case for either. Does the inclusion of a cover sheet that's just a list kind of help with that, or like I'd love to get a better sense of, I can see it both ways, including it, not including it. If this was a purely digital document, I would just make them links to, jump right to the place in the charter that is relevant. But I think we're heading for probably a PDF that's easier to distribute publicly. So yeah, I'd love to reach a sort of consensus about that.
So I feel if you look at the notes that you have, Erica, you have
Yeah.
like a beginning section that has like some important details, background, et cetera, et cetera. I would say before the like what's next, like finding a way into that initial part of the report where you just have the suggestions. I'm just thinking about the audience for this, and
Yeah. I'm on board with the cover
Yeah.
sheet idea, totally. Just wanted to understand whether the in the spreadsheet itself that is going to be attached, if we have a consensus of whether or not it should include charter language.
I think it should.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should. This is a way of allowing that to be okay, that it's that dense, but to have the list up front.
I agree. I
A
think
useful reference.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate reference, as long as we clarify it properly. I'm not all that concerned about the wording of how we describe this as suggestions or whatever. But I do think when we scroll down in this initial report, just sort of putting a point on the things we've done with written comment, public feedback sessions, etc. Having numbers on all of these to like see how many people showed up, what types of feedback did we get, etc. So at least the council knows that we've been engaging the public and what we've been doing, so on and so forth, and also getting sort of an idea of like some suggestions weren't included, but they were here, and if the council is interested in them, here they are. So like basically being like, here's other things we heard as well that aren't included. Maybe like an explanation for like how counselors submitted feedback and why it was anonymous and so on and so forth. I think these are good things to have an explanation for in the report. And then my only other comment was regarding just when we go over here with the let me find it. With this, I would mention somewhere in here about the amount of input. I'm not sure if you already have it, and how the League of Women Voters also collected quite a bit of feedback that we considered. I think that's important to show. Yeah, perfect.
It's in there.
Great, awesome. Other than that, I think that's all I had. Andy?
Can I just answer that? I had a clarification when you said about adding numbers, and I think some of that is some of the process is in the outreach subcommittee summary that's in here. Adding numbers, I think will be easy enough, but I wasn't some of the things that you mentioned you were looking for, I think are in the subcommittee, the outreach summary, but let me know.
Great, perfect. Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you could refer, we have the spreadsheet that has all the tabs in it, that has all the different types of, feedback submitted. And that may be what this more feedback submissions are found here as the link. But just to make clear that we have a listing of all the feedback, that we received, and a repository of all the feedback we received. And we should encourage people that if they submitted feedback and they don't see it there, that they should let us know, and we can make sure that it's, that we check and get it in. So to have that spreadsheet as a on our site, and that people can see the depth of suggestions that were received, that we started with 173 of them or whatever it was, but we had even more in the spreadsheet of all the things that were submitted.
Excellent, thank you. Raphael?
So Erica, I sent my feedback via email. There's stuff about format that I think we should think about. So I just embedded some things for you and Ken to think about as you sort of forge ahead. I would say, like, for me, the Amherst Charter Review Committee process, I think there's some enhancement there in terms of, I actually wove in my sort of recommendations, like clarity about the charge. Like, for instance, like those Collins Center meetings that we had initially, I wrote, like, I think for me, they were aimed at helping us to advance our knowledge of the charter review process and our understanding of the charter. And if you look at our charge, like, that's there. And then there are other things that I noted in terms of, just as I said before, like consistency, but a little more specificity, which I wove into.
Okay,
This is a question. I knew doing it here is tricky, so I just sent it you all's way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And if other people have feedback, feel free. I have a document. And if folks have feedback, send it directly to Erica. Do we want to, just looking at the time, sort of wrap this up with a motion of how we want to proceed with the initial report draft that's here in front of us, as well as all the suggestions and what we know what's going to be added to those suggestions, but just sort of something that could guide Erica and Ken for our next meeting. Raphael, Erica, and then Raphael.
Yeah, I don't know. I've taken notes on everything that people have said about the revisions to the report language and to the idea of a cover sheet, etc. So I'm not sure that we need a motion or vote, but if you would like to, that's fine. The only thing I had a remaining question on is something that Andy brought up earlier and I didn't feel settled about, which is the full body of suggestions in this spreadsheet form. This has come up a couple of times in meetings about whether or not we're including that or how, and at what stage, because we're at initial, preliminary, final. When does it make sense to make that a full, sort of a cleaned up addendum, proper addendum to everything that we are sending over to the council? Does it make more sense at the initial stage? Does it make the most sense as a sort of appendix to the final report? Does it make sense to be sort of linked somewhere from the Charter Review Committee town website? So that's the only part from my perspective that I feel unsettled about, in terms of going back, meeting up with Ken, and finalizing this to the point where we can bring it to the next meeting and hopefully approve a version that can go out. But people have comments.
I agree. I think at our next meeting, we should vote to approve both of these documents as edited with everyone's feedback and suggestions, and send it off to the council. Raphael, then Bernie, and then Andy.
Yeah, thank you and Ken for all the work that you did. It's great work. I would say, regarding your question, like that sort of link that leads to all that feedback could actually, I think, be embedded in this charter review committee process or somewhere there, where you just let people know, like, these are the suggestions that came out of our outreach. So to me, like you asked about whether or not it should be later or now, I think now is fine. It was part of the process.
And in your view, what format would that take?
I actually think there's so much of it that
Yeah,
I'm not sure you put it in an append. I think letting folks know where it lives via a link is important. Including it in a report, like that's a lot. Especially
Yeah.
if you think about the list that we have, the table that we're including, it's just a lot in one report.
Okay, so in your view, it would be like an embedded link, maybe in the description of our process that says
Yeah.
everything else lives here,
Yeah.
and link out to the full thing. Okay. Other
Thanks,
other ways?
Al.
I agree. I
Bernie,
agree.
and then- Oh, okay, great. Bernie?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think just having a link to the big the multi-tab spreadsheet of everything that we heard, having that link for people who have the curiosity and the ambition to go back through it all is fine. I really want to let people know that it's a nice way of letting people know that this is what we heard, and this is what we considered, but we want to keep moving forward with this and keep people focused on what's coming next. The other thing is I would agree with what Erica said. She's taken a page or two of notes and trying to encompass that in a motion would be near impossible, or else the motion itself would be a couple of pages of notes. So I think we've arrived at a consensus of what we want to see, and Erica's recorded it, and let's just go with it.
I'm 100% in agreement. Andy?
I guess I'm just trying to visualize what comes first in this. When we send it off, the text portion, how we did things and all that, I think is vital to have in the report. But I think the chart of what we're considering is probably what should come up front, maybe with a very brief. Maybe there's a piece of this that could be the intro, and then you have the chart, and then you have all the details on the, all the stuff that we did, the process. So, but that's just sort of my.
Yeah.
Sorry, raising my hand.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. My concern is, Andy, to that point, that because this is initial, because these are not things that we have voted through, because we have not fully kind of integrated or incorporated the Collins feedback, all of that context is super important. I'm wary of putting a spreadsheet out front that looks like, here you go, take a vote.
Right.
So it's my feeling that having even though it will be skipped over, having the context and the sort of narrative up front, a cover sheet that's a summary of just the suggestions under consideration, and then the full-bodied spreadsheet behind it is what I'm inclined to do.
I retract my suggestion. I think what you say has merit.
That's reasonable. Bernie?
Yeah, I would agree with her. My rule of thumb is always put your disclaimers up front. So if you tell people what the framework are and how you worked, and then even if they jump to the back, you can always say to them, "Well, we told you up front. This is what we did."
Always read the headline.
Don't blame us. We warned you. Excellent. Other comments, future agenda items before we adjourn and get Andy off to his meeting?
One last question. I don't know about the process for submission. Is this just a PDF attached by the chair to the council?
So I will attach the whatever you guys come up with, like this. Use this for example. I would attach this document as well as the initial report table, and I would attach that and send it to. I would address it to the chair of the council and CC all the council members, Athena, and the town manager.
Okay, thank you.
All could be CC'd on that email as well, or forwarded it.
Great.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
So for next meeting, we're going to review the revised report and hopefully get it ready to go.
Correct.
And I will probably need to check with you, Andy, or you, Julian, to make sure we have included everything that was sent out.
Feel free.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support as needed so that we
Yeah,
can get
same here.
going. Great.
Thank you for all the feedback, everyone.
No problem. Thank you for
Thanks
working.
for all your work.
Yeah.
Good job. Great. Okay. Have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Andy moved, Raphael seconded. I'm an aye. Bernie?
Yes.
Andy?
Aye.
Raphael?
Yes.
And Erica.
Yes.
Great. Really good work on this. Have a great night, everyone. We're making good
And
progress.
thanks, Ken, in absentia. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Watch the recording. We appreciate you.